So technically, somebody looking at this copy is going to edit it in light of other copies and correct the J to a C and correct God to dog. Okay? That's editing the copy of the Bible he's got, but he's not doing the wrong thing. You get that? He's correcting a scribal error. Okay? So now, when you have lots of copies, you can tell what the original was even if you don't have a copy of it anymore. And you're going to have at least one copy that's got the right text. That's verbal plenary inspiration. That's God's promise that He preserves His Word. Okay? And see, it's not really that hard to know what correction you have to make here. And since you got lots of copies, it's not hard to know what correction you have to make here. That's the essence of textual criticism. And there have been a lot of people, all of them Catholic, by the way, over the centuries until the 1800s, especially in the 1800s they did this, where they went searching. I mean, these searches really began around 400 and they kept going on every 200 years or so. They kept searching to find the scriptures because one of the stories you find out from all these errors is that the scripture was constantly attacked. And one of the ways, of course, Satan attacks it is by having errors in it, because he doesn't want you to know what the right text is. He's trying to, make God not keep His promise. All right, but by finding the text, and if you want the Bible, then God makes sure you can find the texts, then you can compare and you know what the real word is. So this original here, all right, we don't have that because, the papyrus doesn't live that long, and neither does a parchment. Okay, but a copy of it does. And you got enough copies, you'll find it, because God will cause you to find it. He knows where the right text is buried. And that's what basically happened. Now, Jerome was one of the guys who wanted to do that. That was 400 AD. Another guy who wanted to do that was Erasmus, and he was behind the Textus Receptus. The trouble was Erasmus wanted to buy the copies himself, and he couldn't get a hold of but 6 of them. But there were thousands to get a hold of. And in the 1800s, we really wanted Bible. Okay? So this original, which is what the original Bible would have looked like to people, and they had no trouble reading it because they were used to this. This original had been transcribed and transcribed and transcribed and transcribed over and over and over again. With the result that over the centuries you came up with, wait a minute, let me do this the right way so you can see it easily. You ended up with, remember how I showed in this example here, you had 3 copies. All right, anybody copying from these 3 sources would have made the same mistakes or would have corrected them en route. So over the centuries, what basically happened is, even though we have 25,000 copies, they basically boil down to 5 or 6 families. And you can tell what family it belongs to, because it would copy the same words and make the same mistakes. Okay? And here we're looking at a verse with some mistakes in it. James 4:5. And I'm going to show you what the mistakes are. And it's really easy to tell what they are. So for all that, you got 25,000 manuscripts pretty much represented here. All right? And the ones that are in each family would have made the same mistakes. Like this one's putting in a comma that doesn't belong. They didn't use punctuation, as we saw at the beginning of the video. All right? So the ones that copy from it are going to include the comma. They all make this mistake, capitalizing this word, because remember, we saw at the beginning of the video the Greek is block letters. And it wasn't until like the 4th century or so that they introduced upper and lower case. That might have been the 8th century that they introduced it. So the introduction of upper and lower case represents the fact that somebody wanted to make it more readable, but they forgot that you never capitalize. Okay? You don't this is a preposition, pros. It means toward or against. Here it means against. You don't capitalize it, and you especially don't capitalize it here, but we're going to go through that so you see how easy this is to know. Alright, so you got a comma in this copy, but no comma here. Alright? You got a comma in this copy. So some of what's in, this is Textus Receptus, some of what's in Textus Receptus, okay, came from a copy that also had the comma in it, or else they inserted it later. This is a Greek question mark. It looks like a semicolon to us. Somebody stuck that in, but see, this is Stephanus, which was 1550. It doesn't have the semicolon. Alright? And all these little markings above the words, that they're just pronunciation guides. They're not part of the Word of God, and you don't really need them. Now, how do we know what I just told you is true? Okay? We know that because A, you don't capitalize, the original text didn't have capitals, it was all one case. Alright? So they didn't distinguish like that. This guy's capitalizing process if it began a new sentence. Alright? The same thing is true here, the same thing is true in our friendly Textus Receptus. This should not be capitalized. That should be a lowercase. That should look like the Roman numeral 2, except it means P in Greek. And that shouldn't be capitalized. Now there's another way you know. Here's how you know. This right here is a phrase. In Greek, it's a syntactical phrase. It all fits together. It's okay, and the phrase in English is, the writing speaks against jealousy. That's all one phrase. So this part is the object of this part. It is not a new sentence. It is not a new quote. Okay? The writing speaks against jealousy. Now, if you're tired and you're a translator and you see this capitalized, you're going to think it begins a new sentence, and that's basically what the scholars have done wrong with this verse. All of them. It's not just the King James that's screwed up here. All the English translations screw up this verse. Alright? And I'm going to show you that too.